In today's video I will share 5 essential campaign tips and tricks that will elevate your gameplay. Whether you're playing on easy or legendary difficulty, it doesn't matter. So sit back, relax and let's dive into these tips. The first tip I have for you guys is siege isolation. So what that means is if you have 2 armies, because you require a minimum of 2 armies here, you can attack a settlement and isolate the enemies that are right outside of it. So I just declared war on Stirland, and what I can do here, I can attack the mood. You can see that I'm up against 2 armies and the garrison. We obviously don't want that, so what you want to do is encircle them and get your second army, and this is why you require a second army. You can take the second army and attack the force that is right outside of the settlement. So I'm going to attack Ernst Alderich here, and what happens is you can see he runs away. If you attack again, you have a 1-on-1. And sometimes he runs so far away that you can actually have a 2-on-1 against the settlement you're sieging currently. So we can now auto-resolve this, or you can fight it yourself, but for the purpose of this video I'm going to auto-resolve. I'm still in range of the settlement, and with Catherine we can now take the mood for a decisive victory. So you're now only up against Albrecht Haupt Andersen, so the army that's inside of the settlement, as well as the settlement garrison, and we have our 2 armies here. We unfortunately lost some units by auto-resolving, so another tip is don't always auto-resolve. Just a quick bonus tip for you guys, just fight it yourself and you have an easier time, because this army is honestly pretty crap against what I have here. So now you can occupy it. It is crucial to actually know this tip, because the enemy is going to use it against you as well, especially on the higher difficulties. For example, if you have 2 armies from the enemy outside of this and you are still in here with Catherine, they are going to single out Grigor. But what you want to be doing in that case, just stand outside of the settlement and they cannot isolate your units. Tip number 2, ambush trapping your enemies. One of my favorite tricks in my legendary campaigns is ambush trapping. This can be easily done by having a smaller army, a weaker army and a strong army. In this example here, I have Ungrim Iron Fist over here in the north, and I have an army that is close by. I'm going to be moving this army over here and putting the army of King Karis in ambush mode. This makes it so that Ungrim thinks there's only one army here if he doesn't get spotted, and he's going to attack. And as you guys can see, it worked perfectly. Ungrim Iron Fist attacked my army. Unfortunately, the ambush was spotted, but he nonetheless attacked because he couldn't retreat. It's a Pyrrhic victory, but we have now a 2 against 1. And in this example here again, we have Ikit Claw over here in forced march, and we have 3 armies waiting for him. 2 in ambush, and 1, the weakest one, is just standing there to appear as a very weak army as bait. And just moments later, we sprung the trap. We have 3 armies against just 1 of Ikit Claw, and he cannot go anywhere. So you can just auto-resolve, you lose some units or you fight yourself, and he's completely gone there. Additionally, while ambushing, you can actually use the terrain to your advantage. So over here you have a 100% success chance while in the jungle. You can see this by hovering over the terrain and seeing the little box over here with a 100% success chance. For example, if you go over here and you hover, you can see a 70% success chance. There's also an additional thing to keep in mind. While ambushing, you need 25% of your movement range left. So for example, I'm using the movement over here, and you can see in the bottom left how much movement you have left. So let's see, 27%. You can move over here and you can still ambush. The next step will be using Lightning Strike. Lightning Strike, for you guys that don't know, is the skill in the blue line over here. Requires 3 points, but you can then Lightning Strike battles. So what that means, for example over here, when you are facing multiple stacks and they are reinforcing each other, you can actually attack, for example here with Epidemius. This is a Pyrrhic victory fighting against 2 armies, but you can enable Lightning Strike over here. It will debuff that leadership and you will only be facing 1 army at a time. This means you can easily clean up the first army, and afterwards you will be going up against the second army, so you only have to face 1 army at a time. So this means you have an easier time, and it's just a couple of points investment. It took down the first army, and now you can see that Thorgard Grunson cannot run away because he's in stance march. So we trapped him basically by using only our lightning strike. So we can attack him again, and this gives us a decisive victory. The only thing you guys need to worry about is that the lightning strike in auto-resolve battles is a little bugged. So for example, if you go over here and enable lightning strike and you want to auto-resolve against this army, you will actually have a worse auto-resolve than if you disable it. But if you go into the battle with lightning strike enabled and you fight the battle yourself, they actually have a leadership debuff. So I suggest just picking for yourself what's the best option. Over here I can just auto-resolve for a decisive victory. And now that I took down 2 stacks of the dwarves. And the good thing is here with our faction, we can immediately just get our units back. We're healthy again and we can push through to take down more of their armies. Tip number 5 for you guys, utilizing heroes on the campaign map. Heroes can be quite useful in your campaigns. They can not only empower your armies, but can also provide you great bonuses on the campaign map. So for example, over here in my Kislev campaign, we can see 2 heroes that are actually boosting our income in one of the provinces. One is boosting it by 11% and the other one is boosting it by 9%. This means that Erengrad, just a single settlement, is actually making a boatload of money. You can actually see how much your provinces are making by clicking on the tab over here in the top right corner, and by clicking sort here we can actually see which province is making the most amount of money and where we need to position our heroes. So for example here, the River Linsk, that's where Erengrad is positioned, is making about 2,000 more income than our southern Oblast region, which has 4 settlements in it. So this means you always need to check which province can make you the most amount of money and how you can use your heroes inside of it. Another thing I'm using my heroes for on the campaign map, especially on legendary difficulty, or in this case in a This is Total War campaign where I declare war on everyone, is scouting on the campaign map. You can see that this one hero is holding all of this area in his side. So I know when to buff up my armies or when to move. And this you can use in various choke points as well. So definitely use it. Another thing heroes are really useful for is inside of an army, of course. But you guys already know that. I think the most forgotten way to use heroes is actually using the blue line. Of course, it's really good to keep them in the army and buffing up your army by, for example, ammunition or missile strength, but you can also block enemy armies, boost income like I said with Kislev for example, steal technology. You can also use it to secure influence as the High Elves and many more things with different factions. So keep an eye out on the blue line as well. Tip number 5, always check your enemy's movement range. For example, over here we have Belegar Ironhammer. He can move all the way over here in the red zone. He's on stance march, so he can actually march all the way over here. But if I move my army over here, he cannot attack. If you check this army, you can see how far he can move in normal stance and in forced march. This tip is really useful for strategic positioning. You can move your army right outside of his range, or you can move over here and start ambushing. Because Belegar is obviously, if you see him over here, going to attack Mirigliano. You can move one army over here just outside of his range. The other army I have here, you can, for example, march over here. And then the next turn, once he takes Mirigliano, you can actually attack him with 2 armies because he cannot reach you and you can reach him. The best thing to do this is just go over here, ambush, for example. Same thing with this army over here, ambush. You know that he's not going to reach you by himself, but you can always just attack. And like I predicted, Belegar Ironhammer is going to take Mirigliano, and I just positioned my armies right outside of it. So let's see in the next turn how we deal with this. And like I mentioned in previous turn, we can now attack with this army to siege Mirigliano, and at the same time come in with my second army to reinforce. Both of them weren't spotted in their ambush, so Belegar had no idea if there was an army close, so he safely assumed he could take Mirigliano, but that was a grave mistake. So combining ambushing with your opponent's movement range will actually net you a whole lot of advantages. And this way you have a 2 against 1, and you can easily take down a legendary lord, as well as take your settlement back. So always be sure to check your surroundings, as well as the movement capabilities of your enemy. This makes it so you can predict movements and catch the AI off guard, as well as lay powerful ambushes, and you can plan ahead and act accordingly. And yet another example in the same campaign, we have a Dwarven army here. He can move just about to overhear, and I have an army in force march just right outside of it. Because I scouted him early, I could actually position myself right outside of his movement range and bring epidemians in as well as reinforcements, so we can eventually get a 2-on-1 again. And last but not least, I want to give you guys an additional tip. If I see an army coming in with this scout and I know this army cannot deal with it, I have two options. I can either recruit some new units, but that will take a while, or I can recruit the Regiments of Renown. I always use them in case of emergency, so I barely use them inside of my armies. But if, for example, Snorgo comes in, I can very quickly recruit all of these units. It will cost a bit, but I have a very beefed up army. This makes it so you don't have to lose valuable settlements to the enemy, and you can use these Regiments of Renown as a sort of way to defend yourself against enemy incursions. Thank you guys for watching this video. Hopefully you like this style of content. I'm going to be making a shift towards way more edited campaigns, faction guides, and tips and tricks videos like this one. So be sure to subscribe, like, and I will see you guys in the next video. Let's go out with a bang.